Hi everyone, it's me, Zombie. Today I'll be showing you how I made my Star-Lord shirt from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Star-Lord wears a couple of different shirts in the movie, but I fell in love with the gray jersey-looking shirt. It has this bubbly-looking alien lettering on it, and has a really cool retro-futuristic feel to it. I did some research and found out that the shirt says Gears Shift, which is a brand name in the Guardians universe. At first, I thought it said "Yeah, baby," which I thought was cool too. As always, the materials that I used to make this are listed right down below in the description box. I made an in-depth video about how I made the pattern for this shirt, so I'll link that right down below as well. Just in case you didn't see it, I'm gonna go over how I made this pattern, and you can check out the longer video if you wish. I started creating the shirt by making my own pattern out of a shirt that I already owned and loved. I used blue painter's tape and covered half of the shirt, including the sleeve. I drew out the seams to match my reference pictures and then drew in some registration lines to make sure that I could match up my patterns once they were all transferred onto the fabric. Once the seams were drawn out, I cut out the pattern pieces and stuck them onto some wax paper. I cut around the wax paper and gave myself about a ½ inch seam allowance on all sides so I would have some wiggle room when I sewed everything together. After my patterns were all done, I traced them onto some jersey fleece. This was where I made my first mistake. This stuff doesn't stretch at all, even though it looked super accurate to my shirt. So, the first shirt came out way too small. Trust me, I felt really dumb making this mistake, but at least you can watch me do it so you don't do the same thing. Tell me if you've ever done something like that before. You know, when you try to put something together after making it and it doesn't fit. Oh, I was so frustrated. But I knew once I made it again, the process would go much faster. That's why it's important to make a test piece or a mock-up, but, you know, I'm stubborn and I totally didn't do that. I realized where I went wrong the first time and got myself some stretch cotton in the same color. I traced my patterns again and used pins and clips to clip all my seams together as I sewed. I set my sewing machine settings to a stretch fabric straight stitch and sewed all of my seams together. Lucky for me, I had a kitty helper who supervised me the whole time and made sure I didn't make any more mistakes. He usually doesn't care when I'm crafting, but as soon as I bust out the sewing machine, he always has to be right there. Sometimes I know he's in the way, but I just don't have the heart to move him. I mean, come on, he's so darn cute. After the shirt was assembled, I top-stitched some of the seams to make them look cleaner and more accurate. After I was happy with how my shirt fit, it was time to make the design that goes on the front of the shirt. I decided to create the logo in Photoshop. The text that the shirt is written in is available online to download, so you can use it in Photoshop if you wish. You can also find the Gear Shift logo online and mess around with some settings in Photoshop to get it to where you can print it out onto some transfer paper. This was the first time I would ever be using transfer paper to create a t-shirt design like this. I printed out a few sizes and finally decided which one I wanted to use on the shirt. There were many different transfer papers to choose from, so I bought a couple different kinds to decide which one would work the best. I went with a stretch transfer, which is designed to be put on stretchy fabrics, just like the shirt I made. Depending on what shirt transfer you use, you may need to print your own design in reverse as well. I cut out my pattern and then I was ready for the next step. I set my iron to a high heat setting and used it to heat up my shirt on a flat surface. I made sure to move the iron around constantly so it wouldn't damage my material. I didn't end up using an ironing board. Using an ironing board for these transfers makes them less effective because the cushioned surface doesn't disperse heat as well, and because transfers also rely on pressure for them to work effectively. I pressed the pattern down firmly and heated it with my iron for about 3 minutes. I kept moving my iron around constantly over the transfer while pressing down really hard. The whole transfer process relies on the heat and pressure to make it work just right. Now for the moment of truth! I peeled up my paper to reveal the design underneath. It could have been better, but for a first try with something like this, I was pretty satisfied with how it turned out. I did do a test design on a scrap piece of fabric before putting it onto my final shirt, because it would totally suck if the pattern didn't work out and I ruined yet another shirt. After my shirt cooled down, I had to try it on. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how it held up. I felt like I leveled up by learning a new skill, how to make my own pattern in Photoshop, and transferring it onto the shirt that I made. Just buying a shirt online would have been fine too, but it was rewarding to make this all by myself. Plus, it fitted just right to my body and the material was so cool and comfortable. I hope watching this inspires you to make something cool of your own. If you're working on something, I would love to see it. Seeing what you're creating makes my day. You can show me what you're making on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, whatever social media you prefer. I have it all right down below in the description box. I'm looking forward to seeing what you're making, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Can't wait to see you next time. Bye everybody!